Hi, and welcome to another episode of Ask on CYC. So every action we take and every word we say could be an inspiration to others. And as Christians, we are put here on earth, whether to inspire people and teach people who we are as Christians through either our words or through our actions. But it's important for us to understand that we are here to inspire. So inspiration can help a lot of people. So we have with us a very special guest on tonight's show, who life tried to put him down, but he used the opportunities around him to pick himself up and enjoy life to its fullest. And he is here on tonight's show to inspire you to enjoy life to the fullest. We have with us Barnaby Howarth. How are you? And welcome to tonight's show.
Shukran, Mina. It's nice to be here.
It's a pleasure having you on Ask.
Thank you.
So I'd like to get familiar with my guests, and so the audience out there can get more familiar with who you are and what do you do?
I am a regular Harry Sucker Rolls, Joe Bag of Donuts, man on the street, and I couldn't be happier. I work at ABC Television doing auto cue for News 24. I do keynote speaking as a side job. I studied journalism at university, played AFL for my local footy club. I'm just as I said, just a Harry Sucker Rolls, and I love it.
Okay. So before we get on to the cool, inspirational stuff, let's get the negative stuff out of the way. I understand you went through a difficult time. You had diabetes, you went through a stroke, and your wife passed of cancer. Mm-hmm. So what was going through your mind during this difficult time?
Through all three of those, I just wanted to be the Harry Sucker Rolls that I just spoke of. I was loving the life I was living before all three of those things. So all I wanted was that same life. I didn't want to be the best in the world or anything. I didn't want to be depressed. I just wanted to be a regular person on the street. So when I got diabetes, I was a pretty hardcore winning mentality footballer, and I wanted to be the best when I was younger. And I heard a quote from Ron Barassi, who's a Hall of Fame player and coach in the AFL, who said, "There's no disgrace in failing. The only disgrace is if you only half try, or 3/4 try, or 99% try." So I lived that motto. Well, I've lived that motto my whole life, but especially with diabetes, I didn't know if I could play in the AFL with diabetes, but I knew that I could try and give it 100%. So I went back and trained as hard as I could, ate the right things, did the extra sessions, and ended up getting signed to play a season with the Sydney Swans. So That was going through my mind when I was diabetic. And then because that was successful, I did the same thing when I had the stroke. I didn't want to become the best stroke survivor ever born. I didn't want to do these amazing things. I just wanted to keep living the life I'd been living. I wanted to keep doing some outdoor adventure stuff. So I climbed Kilimanjaro, did the Kokoda trek. I wanted to meet a girl and get married. And I met the girl of my dreams, and Andrew and I were married. And then Angela was diagnosed with terminal breast cancer in 2013. And the whole way through that, again, I just wanted to be a good, decent person. I'd seen what an old school gentleman was like through my grandfather and my father. So I just wanted to be the same as that. I just wanted to look after my wife, treat her well, look after her when she was sick. And Andrew and I, when Angela was diagnosed, she said she just wanted to travel. So we went on 19 legs of our honeymoon, the last of which we got back from less than a week before she joined her father in heaven. So that's why I love so much just being a Harry Sucker Rolls.
Yeah.
Because that was the stuff that was going through my head, and I never looked in the mirror and thought, "Come on, you can do this," or "Woe is me." I just thought, well, I want to get up every day and just keep, go to Coles and buy milk and bread and, pay my taxes and do all that regular stuff. I'm doing it and I love it.
Okay, well, just a reminder to our audience members, please, if you have any questions that you want to ask Barnaby on tonight's show, this can be your opportunity to be inspired by such a great man who went through such a difficult time, but use this opportunity. The phone number is 0430 115 832. Send us a text or give us a call and speak to him on tonight's live show. Thank you. So how did you push past all this negativity? Because that sounded like you went through a really difficult time, especially with the passing of your wife. And how did you deal with this negative situation? Because a lot of people would just give up on life. A lot of people just cry out and just say, no, why me, and just give in.
Yeah. Well, the secret to what I've done is that there is no secret. I just didn't get too down in the first place. So I was never so down in the depths I had to drag myself back up by the bootlaces. I just was loving the life I'd been living before those things happened. So when they happened, I thought, well, all I want is that same life back. It's going to be different. Like, I'd have left side weakness and certain things that are different after the stroke. One of them is blepharospasm, which is uncontrolled blinking, which is why if you see me close my eyes on live television, that's why I've got extra strong eyelids. So that's the secret, that there is no secret. Everybody thinks that to be a better person, they've got to unlock this untapped, magical, mystical X factor of energy, of motivation. But I found that I didn't have it. I didn't know if I could be Nelson Mandela or Jason McCartney or an Anna Mears, but I knew I could get up every morning and do the things I had to do that day. So that's all I did, and it's worked a treat for me. I couldn't be happier with where I am.
Because you've wanted to play AFL, but you were diagnosed with diabetes, and probably people would have advised you, no, you can't play AFL. So how did you push past all these obstacles where people told you, no, you can't play AFL?
Well, with AFL and diabetes, I had no idea. There was a couple of people who played professional sport as diabetics, so I knew it was possible, but I didn't know if it was possible for me. But I thought, well, I know I can try. If I try as hard as I can and I fail, then I can still be proud of myself. So I went back and I did everything I could and ended up making it. So, yeah, as I said, there was no looking in the mirror and, come on, you can do this, rev up stuff. It was just try it as hard as I could and got to where I wanted to get to.
Yeah. So when your wife passed, dealing with death must have been hard on you. And I know as Christians, we believe that death is such a great thing, such a positive thing. Now that the Lord Christ died on the cross for us, it became such a positive, not a negative. But we here on earth, we still can't fully understand that. So when we deal with death, it's really hard for us. How did you deal with it and push past it?
I was fortunate in a sense in that Angela was diagnosed in 2013 and passed away in 2016. So I had a lot of time to build up to it and to learn what the situation was likely to be. And when it actually happened, there's nothing you can do to prepare yourself for that moment. I lost it at that moment, but I think my wife's legacy has been so beautiful that it's hard to be anything but proud. So that's made my coping with her passing a lot easier. So I mean, I'm a human. I've cried at times, but the times I cry are more selfish tears for me as a husband who's missing his wife. But for Angela, she's been so fondly remembered by her family and friends. Nobody talks about negative things. They all talk about how much she loved and how much they loved her. And I just listen to all that stuff, and it makes my heart proud. So it sounds quite weird, but coping hasn't been that difficult because she's left such a beautiful legacy.
Yeah. You played AFL for the Sydney Swans. That's a big deal. How was that?
That was awesome. I was 18 years old. I was a year out of high school, and I still had a poster of half the blokes I was playing with on my walls. Plugger Lockett, Paul Roos, Paul Kelly. They were some of the best footballers I'd ever seen play the game. So to be training with them on the SCG, calling their names for handballs. I was 18 years old and I was running past Tony Lockett going, plugger, plugger, plugger. Just felt I felt like I was a fan for a day, for an entire season. But that was awesome. There was one diabetes moment when I was at the Swans. I use an insulin pump nowadays, but I was on needles when I was at the Swans. And one afternoon I went and sat in front of my locker had my injection, thinking I'd been watching. But when I stood up to walk out, Paul Kelly and Tony Lockett were standing in front of me watching the whole thing. Tony Lockett just looked at me and looked at my needle, looked back up at me and just went, bugger that. And Paul Kelly, who was the Swans captain, looked me dead in the eye and said, you're a braver bloke than me. So that one moment, that just made my entire year.
Okay, it's very, very inspiring. You know, the fact that it was a great achievement to be playing side by side with the people you looked up to and people that you said you had a poster on your wall about. Must have been a great achievement in your life. So I want to talk to you about success. What does success mean to you?
Success is being proud of the person you are right now. I think a lot of people think that if they're not up there, then they've failed. But I think if you're just there, and you know, if you're a parent and you're getting your kids to school every day and making them lunch and paying off your mortgage, that's an achievement. That should be celebrated. So this idea that success is to getting to the top of the tree of whatever field you're into, I think that's a fallacy. I think success is just being proud of who you are right now, trying as hard as you can, and understanding that the life you're living is something to be really proud of.
Yeah. Just a reminder to our audience members, please, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Barnaby on tonight's show, the phone number is 0430 115 832. Thank you. So I believe you host an annual comedy night. So I want to ask you, and I want you to talk and tell people, how important is laughter in a person's life?
I think laughter is super important. This comedy night, though, was not so much the pursuit of laughter. Angela was a patient at Chris O'Brien Lifehouse during her illness, and we'd ridden in a charity bike ride for Chris O'Brien the year before, but Chris O'Brien weren't doing the ride 3 years ago, the year after we'd done it. So in hospital, I was sitting on Angela's bed and she said, why don't you raise money for Chris O'Brien? I said, okay, that'd be cool. So the comedy night came out of a pursuit to try and help Chris O'Brien rather than to pursue laughter. But as it's turned out, it's just a really, really beneficial night in terms of people just enjoying themselves. And it's not, I don't go out and try and be the best charity night ever and raise millions of dollars and all that sort of stuff. I just try and make it a really enjoyable night. So I get, the night's called Give It a Crack. So it's just about people who've never done comedy before getting up and giving it a crack. So Steve Carfino, the former NBL basketballer, gave stand-up comedy a crack this year and was awesome. Next year, Chris Barth, the former Channel 7 newsreader, is going to give it a crack. Okay. So it's just it started off, I've been running Give It a Crack for 4 years, and it started off as just a way for people to get out of their comfort zone and try something new they've always thought they'd like to give a shot, but never had the opportunity. So now they've got a stage and a microphone and they've got the platform, and I'm just giving them the platform to try and make people laugh, and it's really enjoyable.
No rules?
No rules. Just ask Carfino. No rules at all.
All right, sounds very interesting. So yeah, you're providing a laughter for people out there, giving them that chance to laugh and smile, and I think that's what we should all be aiming for in life.
Yeah, well, it's just, it's another one of those things where people forget that because they're not trying to get to the top of the tree and have the best night ever, they forget that you can just go out on a Wednesday night and enjoy yourself and get something out of it.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to go for a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion.
Sounds good.
Just a reminder to our audience members, please, if you have any questions that you'd like to send them through while we're on the break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion and answer your questions, of course. The phone number is 0430 115 832. Tonight's topic is about inspirational speaking. So please tune in and ask your questions on tonight's live show. Thank you.
CYC Christian Youth Channel.
Hi, and welcome back to Ask on CYC. So tonight's topic, we're talking about how we can become an inspiration to others. So we have one of our very own inspirational speaker, Barnaby. Welcome back to the show, Barnaby.
Shukran again.
We actually have a question that just came in from an audience member.
Yep.
They're asking, do you believe that your upbringing helped with the way you responded to the obstacles you faced in life?
I think my upbringing is exactly what has helped me adopt the attitude I've had to all the dramas in my life. My family are just incredible. They taught me that the phrase I use when I speak is that rain falls on the just and the unjust alike, but there comes a time when you just have to get over it and go and play in the puddles. So, and my family instilled that in me. They made me aware that bad things happen, like there's no getting away from it. So you can't live your life looking over your shoulder, trying to make sure bad stuff doesn't happen. It will happen. You may not suffer adversity, but you'll be disappointed. And the quicker you realise that not freaking out and just living the same life you've been living before it is, well, that's what led me to success. Whether it does for other people, I'm not going to try and convince them either way, but yeah, that whole upbringing really set me up for who I am today.
Okay, so it's important for us to understand that what we do to others, being role models, is important into how they're going to go take on life out there. So on the topic of role models, we as Christians, I believe in a way that we are like role models. So how can we live the life of being a good role model?
Well, I think everybody has an inner understanding of what's right and wrong. And to be a role model, you just need to do what you think is make what you think is the right decision every single time. If you think you're getting away with something that's not right, but you think no one's watching, people will be watching. Kids pick things up and kids repeat things they heard 2 years ago. So to be a good role model it's a really important thing, because kids don't just hear what you say, they follow what you say. So if something bad happens to you and you freak out and think it's the worst thing ever and it's all drama and fireworks, then younger people around you will think that's the way you're supposed to react when you're disappointed. But if something bad happens to you and you just go, oh well, and carry on with things, then the people younger than you will realise that's the way you should treat disappointment in your life.
Okay. We actually got another question that came in from the audience member. They're asking, has anyone asked you to coach them, and would you accept this idea?
I did coach an under-18 football team at my local club, Pennant Hills, and I had my ring finger chopped off as a result. I dislocated the finger twice, and it wasn't healing, so I went to a different surgeon and said, just lop it off.
Oh.
So yes, I've been asked, but no, I don't have any desires to do it again.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a statement, and I want you to elaborate on the statement that I'm about to throw at you. If we don't taste suffering now, how can we understand what joy tastes like?
Well, I have a problem in saying that this is the way I've lived and it's worked for me, therefore it'll work for you. But if people want to hear it from a higher authority, there's a verse from Romans that says, do not conform yourself to this world, but transform your mind, that in testing you'll see what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. So I think that's confirmation that from the Bible, saying that being tested and dealing with the disappointments in your life is a good way to understand who you are and how you react to things, and you can go on and be the role model that you want to be.
Okay. We got another question that just came in from the audience member. They're asking, what preparation do you do before a talk?
Before a talk, none, basically. I do all my preparation weeks beforehand, days beforehand, in getting my slides right and practicing my speech, so that on the day of the speech, I don't get nervous and think, oh no, that slide's in the wrong spot. I just get it all prepared and go there confident that I've done all the work and I know what I've got to do. So I just get up there pretty relaxed. I think after doing these comedy nights for the last 3 years, it's helped me realise that public performance, whether it's comedy or the keynote speaking, is all about confidence. If you get up there and you're stumbling and nervous and forgetting your lines, people in the audience can pick up on that fear. Whereas if you get up there and things don't go exactly how you'd planned it, but you get up there and do it confidently, then people will go with you.
Okay, so I want to talk to you about our culture. So we come from a culture where we have to be the best at everything that we do, especially in our curriculum and our studies. And there's no opportunity for failure. It's not an option. Failure is not an option. So what advice would you give to the youth out there who are watching this in terms of failure?
I'd say that if you think your potential is up here, but you're only sitting here, as long as you can get home at the end of every day, look yourself in the mirror and say you couldn't have tried any harder than you did, you haven't failed. You haven't let anyone down. You can be just as proud as the person that goes on to become CEO or Prime Minister or an Olympian. As I said before, there's no mystical, magical X factors about success. Just a matter of getting up every day, doing the right things, repeating it, doing it again, doing it over and over, and making it become a habit. So if I were to talk to any kids out there who feel like they're letting someone down, if you can't try any harder than you think you are, then be proud of who you are and what you're doing right now. There's nothing in the world that says you have to be the best. You have to try your hardest, but if you don't make it to being the best, then c'est la vie.
Okay. We've got another question that just came from an audience member. They're asking, in your opinion, how can we be players in life and not just spectators?
Players in life. That's very interesting, but that's exactly what I was just saying. If you can just get up every day and do what you have to do, get to work on time, get to uni on time, whatever you're doing, love your family, buy Christmas presents, the small, simple things that have to be done day to day that people often think are just frustrations of life. They're things that people should be really proud of. If you've got a license, you should be really proud of yourself. So life is a series of lots of small decisions and small actions that add up and accumulate over your lifetime and turn you into the person that you are.
Okay. Another question that just come in, they're asking, as an inspirational speaker, do you see the positive results of your work?
I very often do. Kids especially are my favourite audience in terms of response, but probably the best one I got was from a teacher when I was speaking in Adelaide. I'd just given my speech and I was just at the coffee machine lining up for a coffee and turned around and there was this teacher behind me. And he said, "Oh, thanks so much for your speech." I said, "No problem." And he started crying. And I said, "Oh, are you all right?" And he said, "I retired last year from teaching and I've been waiting for that light bulb moment that tells me what I can do to be the best in the world." And he said, "But hearing you speak makes me realise that I don't need to be the best. I just need to do what's on my plate right now as well as I can, love my family and be proud of myself." So that was a real reaffirming comment, because that's what I'm trying to tell people in my speaking, that who you are right now is good enough if you're trying as hard as you can.
Okay. You wrote a book called Playing in the Puddles. What is this book about?
It's basically my life story. I wrote my autobiography after my year at the Swans to try and tell other diabetic kids that they didn't have to give up on their dreams just because they've been diagnosed. And I'd written all of the book except for the last chapter when I had the stroke. And I spent 4 days on life support. My family and friends were told to come and say goodbye. because I wasn't supposed to come out of my coma after the stroke. So when I got back on my feet, I looked back at what I almost missed out on, and the last chapter of my autobiography was one thing. So when I got back on my feet, I just locked myself in a room and quickly wrote the last chapter. So it's this book about diabetes. Then the last chapter says, oh, by the way, I was bashed in an alcohol-fueled gang attack and had a stroke and almost died. Goodbye. And that was it. So I wasn't all that proud of the end result. So playing in the puddles, I employed a professional writer to write my biography for me. And that's the end result, and I'm over the moon with how it reads.
Yeah.
The guy who started the fight that ended up with me being bashed and tearing an artery in my brainstem, which caused the stroke, he wrote the foreword. I gave the brief to the writer. I just said, make it sound entertaining. If it's not 100% factually correct, I'll get over it as long as it sounds good. So there's a few things in there. She was an English girl and tried to be colloquial Australian, and like there was an instance where I was playing a game of footy and the guy who set me up with a goal ran up to me and said, "That's fantastic." I thought, oh, that's not quite how we would have said it on the footy field, but near enough's good enough. So yeah, that's the book.
Okay, I know you mentioned this line earlier, but I think it's mentioned in your book also about how it rains on everyone. Can you please elaborate on what's the line and elaborate on it?
So the line is, rain falls on the just and the unjust alike, but there comes a time when you just have to get over it and go and play in the puddles.
Okay.
Which is basically, like, bad things happen. We'll all be disappointed. As I said, we may not have a stroke or get diabetes or lose a loved one too young, but we'll be disappointed. We'll spill coffee on our shirt. We'll get a lower mark than we're hoping in an exam. We'll be late for work. Things will happen that aren't what we wanted them to be. So you can either decide to whinge and lie on the floor and bang your fists, or you can just go outside and play in the puddles. Just keep enjoying life.
It reminds me of what we were taught in Sunday school, how the narrow path is for everyone, whether you're just or unjust, and it's a hard path, but it's only the just that feel that they must go out and, like you said, play in the puddles, go out and take on this path, whether it's raining or not.
Yeah, well, there's so many cliches. I mean, probably the best one that comes to mind is that life's about the journey, not the destination. So if your journey, you're not out there playing in the puddles and you're whinging, complaining that things aren't going your way, then the journey's going to suck. So the destination isn't going to be as spectacular if you make it to the destination. But if on your journey you take the attitude to disappointment that it's going to happen regardless, disappointment doesn't happen because you failed at something. It happens. It's just a fact of life. So if you just realise that there's certain things that will happen that you have no control and no power over, then the destination when you get there is going to be spectacular.
Yeah. Okay. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for tonight's show, and I'd like to thank you very much for sharing your inspirational story and hopefully inspiring people out there. It's a pleasure having you on the show, Barnaby.
Thanks, Mina. Pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you to our audience members who've tuned into tonight's show. I'm Mina Ibrahim from your CYC studios in Sydney. Good night and God bless.
CYC Christian Youth Channel.